Once again, we're at Chastain Park to see Beres Hammond, Luciano, and another band.
This was actually my second time visiting Cadence Bank Amphitheatre. The first time had been just 2 days prior. Now on a Sunday, I had a better lay of the land, knew what to expect, got even better parking this time around, just a 5-minute walk away. Getting into the amphitheater was not at all problematic. Got in when I want to say I arrived at the venue just a little bit before doors were supposed to open, so it wasn't super crowded or anything like that, which is something that I would recommend. Avoiding all of that rush and hustle. It was an absolute vibe from the beginning. They played music from like the time the show was set to start, and it was one of these events where you could bring in a cooler. So, like people brought their own food, people brought wine and stuff like that. The show that I attended the few days earlier, you couldn't bring in food, which the food isn't that expensive to buy there, but it was cool to bring your own food to just hang out. It felt more like a picnic type setup. So it's like you sit back, you relax, there's good music, everybody's like just cool and relaxed and everything. Perfect way to spend a Sunday afternoon. Good reggae music. Sure, they threw in a little bit of dance hall, but it was more like rockers and whatnot. And as someone who actually really loves Gregory Isaacs, Dennis Brown, and all of that, it was just perfect vibe for a Sunday afternoon. So I initially thought that the show was just going to be Beres Hammond, but I then realized that there would be some opening acts. Luciano was a featured performer, and then prior to that you had Inner Circle, and then a few other opening acts that, no shade and sorry, but I don't remember their names. But this is part of why I try to get to concerts early, as well as like boxing matches or whatever, whether I'm watching on TV or in person, because I try to show love to the opening acts and like the undercard fighters. They're up and coming, they need that encouragement and push and whatnot, and you never know who might pop off and become like a really big artist. It's cool to attend and say that you saw them early on in their careers. And the collection of artists who performed was really great because it all just flowed together. The early opening acts, they really just did like a song or two, maybe like 10-15 minutes on stage or something. Inner Circle was a bit longer, and I wasn't really familiar with the band, but I was familiar with some of the songs that they played, and it just flowed really well. Everything kind of meshed together. There weren't like any random acts or anyone that seemed out of place. I felt like Inner Circle got like the main part of the show started, and they did a good job in keeping the crowd amped up. And that, in addition to the MC was pretty funny, and then playing music in between sets and things like that, really helped to keep the vibe going. Really great show. It was still daylight when Luciano came out on stage, and when I think of Luciano, I think more of like conscious music. So within reggae you have rockers, which is kind of like if you think of like R&B and soul music, like lovers rock kind of stuff. You then have dancehall, which is like your amped up party music, and you then have conscious music, which is, as the name implies, like conscious. It's like about more spirituality, not necessarily religion, but along those lines, community, social issues and things like that. And it's one of the things that I like about reggae music, where within this one art form you have these kind of different subgenres that kind of all work together, where you can even find all of that within one artist, where you can have your party dancehall music, you can have your like lovers rock, your not necessarily ballads, but like sweet romantic music, and then it's like you can also have music with a message. It's one of the things that I liked about hip-hop, where you had a little something there for everyone, a good amount of variety. But I would say in recent years, and part of it could just be that I haven't been really following any kind of music genre closely, is that it seems that both forms of music, hip-hop, rap, and reggae as well, are starting to lean more towards just being like one thing. And granted, I say that with the caveat that it might just be my skewed perception, but it's actually one of the things that I loved about these art forms growing up, where you can have such variety within them. And so it's evident from this show here, where, you know, the show started off with some, like, I would say modern dancehall type artists or type music, transitioned into Luciano being a bit more conscious, and then ended with Beres Hammond, who I would say probably leans a little bit more towards being rockers, but also has songs that fits into those other categories. So it's like within this one show, you had a little bit of everything. And as with reggae, it kind of all worked together, where you could have an artist like Beres or even like Butcher that hits on all of those different areas. You know, they can do dancehall just as easily as they can do conscious music, just as easily as they can do like rockers, you know. And you can find that in reggae within one artist, but then also you have these songs where you'll have, you know, 2 or 3 artists on the song, and from each one of them you get something a little bit different, but it comes together for a really nice combination. Well, I will say that I'm not necessarily the biggest Luciano fan. That's not to say that I don't like him, but rather that I'm not as familiar with his entire catalog as I am with some other artists. There are particular songs of his that I like, but I don't know like each and every Luciano song. So in going into this, the songs that I know and I especially enjoy from him would be Lord Give Me Strength, and then It's Me Again, Jah. And I was a little bit disappointed to, you know, kind of get through the show. Those were the songs that I was looking forward to, and to not really hear them. But he did perform some other songs that I wasn't quite familiar with, like the rhythm or whatever might sound familiar, or a little bit of song might sound familiar, but not in its entirety, but that I still enjoyed. So it's like, while I don't remember hearing those 2 specific songs, I still enjoyed Luciano's performance. He brought a lot of energy to the show. It helped to contribute to the vibe, right? Like, just very, very energetic, conscious music, a lot of messages in his music. He took time in between songs to talk to the crowd and whatnot, and very, very enjoyable performance. I would definitely go see him again. Though if I go to see him again, I do want to hear Lord Give Me Strength and It's Me Again, Jah.
If Butcher was here tonight, he would have sing this one. Sing! Blood is on your shoulder. Kill like today, you could not kill like tomorrow. Who could have play one Butcher? You yes, always need the rest. There's no life in the West. I know the East is the best. All the propaganda and spread, tongues will have to confess. Oh, I'm in bondage, living is a mess. And I got to rise up, alleviate the stress. No longer will I explode. If you believe in love, say love. Say love. Only love. Not for who you think I am, not what you want me to be. Let's do it for me. I wanna give you my heart. I don't wanna take it back. Now this is my child. Ladies, there is someone is backstage. Sing for Mary. Sing, sing. It's a pity. Say what, say what? Yes, yes. 2 pound now within a gun. It's in your handbag. You're not stuck it in your backpack. This melody your girlfriend contact. Everybody now this. I'm only come around like toad. Don't stop us now. From this how we going around the album. Driver. Don't
them. So baby, you know what?
Me love me car, me love me bike, me love me money and things. But most of all, me love me brownie. Love me car, me love me bike, me love me money and things. But most of all, me love me brownie. We are not woman, this me and the girl with that complexion, but you don't stop crying. We are not woman, what the things I want for you.
Oh God, let me say, that is beauty. What do you call that?
It's one in a million. Have it from dirt and natural suntan. Smooth like a cake.
To your nose and lotion. Take it, take it, take it right on. I'm missing, missing.
Precious love all over me.
Oh my God.
Can't you see? Believe in me.
I'm missing,
Cover me. Cover me.
baby girl.
Hide me. Hide me.
I know you're ready for showtime.
Where no heart of love can find.
You would man
Oh, I'm feeling cold.
wherever the beating man finds in the house.
It's so cover me.
Put your hands up in the air for love beating man. Ladies, 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 ladies.
Oh, officer, give me the girl and make the wickedest slum. The kind of girl where nothing love fashion, man. Man, if you want to get me legal, you know fi, must have fear. I hold hard like me. Me love the girl and me not toad and tray. And everybody know me while every day. Believe you me never sink out all of me. If I be hard dog like me. Me love the girl and me not toad.
And ladies, and if your man a play around, if your man a flop himself, what you tell? What you do? What you do?
But you man if you're fed up with your boyfriend, and your boyfriend a linging on you. Every night you come in, linging on your ears, and your nose and your gaze, you again.
Now, as the headliner, Beres Hammond was most certainly the high point of the show. And in seeing him live, this was my first time seeing him live. Really my first time going to an official reggae concert. I'd seen like reggae shows as a kid in Brooklyn growing up. I'd seen various artists on Eastern Parkway at the Labor Day Parade, but this was my first time going to a real deal official reggae concert. But being at Beres Hammond's show and hearing him perform songs from different points of his career really helped me realize how much his music has been a part of the soundtrack of my life, because I could think about songs that he released which were popular when I was in college, being at college parties and dancing to them, when I was a freshman in high school, and then stretching back way earlier than that into the 90s when I was a little kid, hearing like the new Beres Hammond song, where some of these songs that would go on to be classics, where at the show all they would have to do is just play like the few opening notes and everybody would automatically know the song. Everybody would know not just the instrumental, like as far as the musical arrangement, but they would know the lyrics. They could cut out the music and the crowd could continue singing on. And it helped me realize that quite a number of these songs were songs that came out. They were new releases when I was like even going back to being a little kid. And so with that, it was like really nostalgic for me to be at this concert, to hear all of this music. Now, to put in context, I wasn't there for like the early part of Beres Hammond's career. I want to say Beres Hammond started out in like the 70s. So he actually crossed paths with like your Bob Marleys, your Dennis Browns, your Gregory Isaacs. But to my knowledge, or I guess my awareness, because it's the point at which I was born and then became aware of what was going on with music, is that I really remember him from like starting off in the early 90s, right? Not too aware of him from like the late 80s, but that could just be me. But in being at the show, like, let me take you back for a minute. I remember being a kid, growing up in Brooklyn, like for the early part of my life. Both sides of my family are from the Caribbean. Growing up at different parts of Flatbush. So West Indian culture was not just a huge part of my life within my home, but also outside my home in the community, because a lot of the kids that I went to school with, a lot of my neighbors, just people that you knew were from the islands. And so all along Flatbush there, if you've never been to New York, it's a bit different now because of gentrification. But at the time growing up, it was like a mixture of Black America and the Caribbean. And so I can remember being a kid growing up and hearing these songs in my father's car and pumping out of cars all along Flatbush, like Church Avenue, Flatbush on a Saturday. This is what you're hearing, and so being at the show and hearing these various songs, it's like different songs came out at different points in my life. I could think back to when I first heard Step Aside Now, or when I first heard I Wish, or when I first heard Rockaway. And it's like I have so many memories that are associated with those songs, or rather I associate those songs with specific periods of my life. And it's actually really interesting. It gave me a new appreciation for Beres Hammond. Obviously, I like him as an artist, which is why I was at the show. But it gave me an even deeper appreciation for him because it allowed me to see just how deep his catalog is. His songs, his success as a reggae musician goes back for years. He's a solid reggae musician. And as I was saying earlier, where reggae, much as with rap or original rap and even with original reggae, had various facets and components, where you had the party music with dancehall, you had rockers, so your romantic music, and then you have your conscious music. And with other artists, they kind of lean into one area or another. They might have one or two songs in another area, but they kind of specialize in one thing. So it's like Butcher started out in dancehall and then later on moved to more conscious music. And then every now and then you might get a rockers, or romantic-ish type song from him. Shaba was dancehall, Beanie Man was dancehall, Supercat was dancehall, but also mixed in a bit of conscious as well. But Beres, when you look at his catalog, I think he's one of those rare reggae artists that hits in all three areas and does a great job with them all, where you can think of classic songs, plural, meaning more than one, that are a part of each one of those boxes or fit into each one of those boxes, and it's flawless and effortless. He can do rockers, he can do dancehall, he can do conscious music, mix it all together, and it all flows, it all feels natural. So it really gives you a sense, hearing him play all of these songs back to back, having basically a concert which is the best of Beres Hammond, it really gives you appreciation for just how talented he is as a musician. The blessing, I would say, he's bestowed upon reggae fans with this catalog of music that he's put together. And actually, while we were at the show, towards the end of the show, they came out and they actually presented him with an award. It kind of put a little break in the vibe, kind of slowed things down a little bit, but I was cool with it. I know some of the people around me were kind of complaining about it because, we're into the music and we're vibing and stuff, and they kind of cut the action for him to receive this award. But I look at it as he deserves it. you know, he earned it. He's made really great contributions to reggae music, and I fully believe in giving people their flowers while they're here. You know, not waiting for them to get old or for them to pass away or whatever, and to then celebrate, you know, their accomplishments. So I was pretty much okay with them coming out on stage to give him this award, you know, to give him his flowers in front of a crowd that could applaud and cheer for him, you know, because sometimes these types of awards, unless it's like at an award show, it takes place not necessarily behind closed doors, but without the fanfare that I think it deserves. So, you know, that was a good look for him. But another thing about it, which is something that I'm finding I'm really enjoying about attending concerts, is that it's one thing to hear music on a record or a CD, or in the present on like an MP3, to listen to it in your headphones, to listen to it in your home speaker, in your car or whatever. It's a completely different experience to be at a concert hall, in this case an amphitheater, and to hear the music being played live. Now, I'm sure if you went to a show and, you know, they were playing with, like, let's say records or turntables or what have you, it'd be a different experience. But here, it was something completely different to hear the songs being played with a live band. It's like, it really gives you an appreciation for the music, like beyond the lyrics, because lyrics are lyrics, but for the music. Like, the instruments sound a lot brighter. Sometimes when you listen to recorded music, it can sound pretty condensed, but here there's more space between the instruments, so it's like they sound brighter. You can hear the individual instruments more easily. So it's like, I love the saxophone, and in being there, it helped me realize, like, just how much the saxophone is used in reggae music, right? I want to say with both Luciano as well as Beres, you know, you hear more brass. It's an opportunity for you to more clearly hear the various instruments. And so I thought that really added to the experience, because it's like, sure, you know, you've heard these records in various other places, but I really don't think anything compares to hearing it live, to hearing him perform these songs, hearing him sort of ad-lib and kind of draw out certain songs, slow them down a little bit, speed them up, change around the arrangement, and then beyond that, to hear, you know, the background singers where their harmonies are just incredible. And then you also have this amazing band backing him that just adds a lot of energy to the songs. And so with all of those factors combining, it made for an incredible show. And I'm glad I had the chance to see Beres Hammond. Thanks for tuning in. To ensure you don't miss any episodes, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, go ahead and click that thumbs up button if you like what you saw, and go ahead and share it on social media.